Hello folks, welcome back to my ATM Gravitas 2 series. My name is Cthulhamonster. Last episode we made the leap into Ender.io to unlock traveling anchors and the traveling staff, which I'll admit I have been using relentlessly since. We've upgraded our energy hatches on the electric blast furnace to HV to speed up the processing and to start prepping for our dive into the HV and beyond. Lastly, we collected some gems, emerald and sapphire, to make lenses for the laser engraver. This is going to help us print some chips for our HV circuit, as well as get us closer to AE2. Some of the first jobs we did is a few rabbit holes of distraction. First thing I did was I expanded our EBF to 2 EBFs, different coils included. One of the first things I want to do is take a look at how many coils I need to make, and I need 16 coils for this. The Canthal ones, you can see that they're a little bit different than the copper nickel, whereas the EBF. So it can handle 1800K, and then the Canthal ones can handle the 27. I'm not sure if it actually impacts the EBF rate though, where you can see the pyrolyze oven. The Canthanol ones are at 100% speed, and the copper nickel one we're at 75. So this will be a great test. So the coils themselves aren't too bad. They're 8 aluminum foil, 2 times Canthal wires, 8 of those, basically 1 ingot of liquid rubber, copper, and that'll make 1 of these. And we're gonna need 16 total. So this 12 times Canthanol wire is going to be the biggest problem that I can see. All right, I did the math. So what I think we need is to run this recipe here about 43 times. It's like 42.67, so it's 43. We gotta round up. So that's how much iron, aluminum, and chromium we're gonna need. All right, here's my mixers. Let's get these Canthanol going. As I'm doing this, I think I am going to start a second EBF because I need more. And the other option is I start to build a bunch of stuff, but right now I want HV. So never thought making 15 crucibles for my hype train would be so nice. I have so much extra fire clay. The next rabbit hole we went down was our solution for polyethylene. We will need polyethylene to break into AE2, and I needed a little bit more of a robust setup to process this. So here is my little interim polyethylene strategy. I have already used the distillery for my heavy fuel. Then I put it down to sulfuric heavy fuel. And right now I am mixing it with hydrogen gas here. And right now I just have too much. And hydrogen gas, this method here turns into heavy fuel and hydrogen sulfide, which you can see is within this quadruple gold pipe. This has 4 channels to it, so it can send 4 fluids in 4 different directions. I have it going up with the hydrogen sulfide and over to the right here with the heavy fuel. The way I did that is at the bottom of the incoming machines, I put a fluid filter here, and I just whitelisted what I would accept before that went in here. So going up, I have an electrolyzer which pulls the sulfur out of the hydrogen sulfide and then recycles it back into the chemical reactor here. So I don't need to keep feeding hydrogen to the system. And then over here, I have the heavy fuel mixing with steam to make severely steam cracked heavy fuel, which has a byproduct of some carbon, and then goes and makes ethylene, which I'm mixing with oxygen, which I don't have a lot. I'm gonna have to go get some more. And that comes out here with the polyethylene. This right here is definitely not the most efficient way to do this. However, I only had access to oil sands as a quick option. If I had something like raw oil, I might make this a little bit different. So running the math, because that's what my mode is this episode apparently. If I'm using sulfuric heavy fuel, I need about 13.3 buckets of that to make 1 bucket of ethylene. If I'm using naphtha, it requires 4.4 buckets of naphtha for 1 bucket of ethylene. So I had a heavy oil, so if you could see that I get 250 millibuckets of heavy fuel versus 15 millibuckets of naphtha, and the ethylene ratio was it takes 3 times as much heavy sulfuric fuel as the naphtha to make ethylene. And this is a ratio of almost 16 times here. So with this option, I was getting over 5 times as much ethylene out of heavy oil. However, when you look at the raw oil, it's not the same situation. Raw oil, when you distill it, you could see that heavy fuel, I only would get 10 millibuckets versus 150 millibuckets of naphtha. So very much a different ratio. And I unfortunately, you said distillery tower early on, but this is a HV item, and it's a beautiful multi-block that gives you all of the outputs from distilling stuff. However, you can use just a distillery if you don't need the other byproducts. So this just limits you to one of these. And the big difference is the naphtha one is LV, and this required you to have the MV distillery to start. And one item I haven't really expanded on is my little brick machine here. I'm using a combination of Create and Gregtech to create bricks as well as an offside of flint. So I have a pretty good backlog of both these items for future builds. This will be in our block factory in the future, but I just wanted to show a little thing here in case you want to try to replicate it. This uses Create motors to transform Gregtech energy into Create so I can use both. With those rabbit holes talked about, I want to get into the main part that we focused on this week, which is our AE2 setup. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Certane and also the individual pieces that were required. Let's see what I got up to. I want to take a look again at AE2 here. But we worked on the chemistry first, which there's 4 processes here to get to Certane. And I would say the AE2 chemistry is not the most helpful to verbalize. So once we have the Certane, we're actually aiming for the Certus buell, which is the next step. And it requires 16 buckets of that, as well as those silicon wafers. And we put that into the chemical vapor disposition, which is just terrible because it's really the machine is the depositor. And these small stainless steel fluid pipes right here ruined my day the other day. Which meant I needed to get to stainless steel. But it's okay. We're here now. So wrench and a hammer. I need 2 of these. 1, 2. Excellent. And now with this, I just need another emitter here, which that flawless emerald electrum. Very helpful stuff to have. And now we just need to get our hull, which you see we're really low on Certus and aluminum. And I'm actually in the process of making up more. All right, so I did get some more aluminum here so we can make our vapor depositor, chemical vapor dealio. Let's get this made. Excellent. And then this can have that Certane fed to it. And we can make these AE2 wafers. And then I'm going to hook this this lovely dealio up. I have 2 more spots left in this machine block. And we don't have a lot of Certane, so we have just enough for 1. I'm not nervous. You're nervous. Maybe I'd move this and replace it with the... Yeah, I'm going to move this and replace it with the dealio. There's my Certane, my precious. Gonna grab a wafer. Fine. You have no idea how much hours of work that was. And I'm probably gonna have to do it again before I get the rest done. So, shoot. And let's look at this. We should have our new lens. There's our diamond lens. So that answers this section here. And now we'll be able to cut the AE2 wafers from the buell. So each buell itself will have 16 wafers. So, and then each wafer, when we actually cut those, is another, looks like, is that 3 or 8? Looks like 8. Hey, there it is, our Certus buell. First of its name. And now we cut it, right? Yep. All right, so we got our first wafers here. I'm very excited. I do know, so it's ruby, sapphire, and diamond for these, and I'm just going to do 1 at a time for this. Maybe 3. 2 at a time. Let's do 2 at a time and figure out which ones we need more of. Plastic circuit printed boards. Okay, so we're going to need to get into this before the next step. And this will actually be very useful for the next step of board as well. believe it's actually also part of the HV line. I'm so excited, I just can't hide it. You know. So it's right up here as well in the HV section. So it's using iron chloride 3 and then the plastic sheets. And plastic sheets have polyethylene involved. So that polyethylene is no longer really an option. That's a necessity. All right, we should have everything to make our first inscriber for AE2 now. So the vanadium steel plate, I think, is one of the harder pieces, but luckily we have our stuff there. So vanadium steel is an EBF recipe. It's an MF one, but making the actual mix is also an MV recipe. So it's very much gated there, which is fine. And here's our inscriber. So with the inscriber, we can finally move towards, we got one section of moving towards the AE2 circuits, but we also need to make these plastic printed circuit boards. So it can happen in an LV mixer and sodium persulfate or iron chloride. But the big part is this plastic circuit board. So I'm going to run a few circuit boards here and look to getting our first system. The energy acceptor in AE2 is one way we can get our energy there, or we can directly tie to the ME controller. So we're going to need an ME controller in time. So I'm not sure if I'm going to hold off on the energy acceptor. All right, excellent. I am making up some of those plastic circuits right now. And it doesn't, looking at it, it doesn't take a terrifying amount of sulfuric acid, but I am in the process of siphoning my hydrogen sulfide out of this, my little temporary polyethylene here. Excellent. And then with the plastic ones, this just needs to go in with the iron chloride or the sodium persulfate. And I actually did make up some iron chloride earlier, so I have 14 buckets of that. With certain dust, one of the things we need is going to be carbon, and we're pulling a bunch of carbon here. So I am going to run some of this in the EBF as well. So I have run Certus dust here. It doesn't need a circuit, so I'm just going to keep the circuit for my purified iron back here as well. So then I just started making up a large vat of hydrochloric acid. So we have 30 of the plastic dealios to start. And let's see what these need. I believe they all require us to have the red alloy wire now. So let's, not now. I believe they all require the red alloy wire, the fine red alloy wire. It do. I really love that animation. I think it's so cool. And I have been working on getting some polarized Certus quartz here, which I'm very excited about. I'm using the autoclave, which I don't have too much use for, to make these Certus quartz crystals, because I process this down all the way down to dust. Another item we're going to need is actually going to be quartz fiber here. Quartz fiber plus the Fluix crystal in fiberglass or glass. Remember to always look at the next page because that always gets me. Glass or something I definitely don't know. So we're going to use this down here. So I'm going to make a bunch of glass, liquid glass as well. And I want a lot of Fluix glass cable here. And we will always need a lot of that. All right, so I'm just going to make some Fluix crystal, I believe. It's not that one, it's this one. And then I need something else. What is it? Water? Hey! First up, the Fluix cable. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, with the formation and the annihilation core both taking logic processors, I'm going to start up some more of those. So a little bit of an abrupt fade in from what I was talking about with the different components for AE2. I continue to work on this on my Wednesday ATM Gravitas streams where I'm doing those chores. And I was able to go from just having an ME disk drive here to having 2 4K cells of fluid as well as items here. My stuff definitely isn't moved over, but I found out a few things and I was editing the footage and my gosh, this can look very dry. So a few things to note here. We've moved all the way down to the ME controller. I did have to make the energy acceptor because the ME controller, which was what I was hoping to skip to originally, is HV, and I didn't have these two setups yet. So I could process some advanced assemblers. We made a pile of circuits, to be honest. I think I have 16. I had 16 total HV circuits. This is its temporary home. And I'm very happy to have that because this piece right here is no longer really necessary. I could directly connect here to the ME controller, but it wasn't there. The reason I really was pushing for this is because I was going a little insane with fluids and having a ton of different drums. You could see I have, 9 different steel drums in here and 1 aluminum. And I'm just going to throw some more in there. And the drums were just driving me a little bit mad. And with AE2, this version, I can't commit to all of them. But with AE2 here, I'm able to take a barrel of something and left click to pull. So I just pulled the glue from it. And if I want to put it back onto the disk drive, I can right click and dump it in there. Same with chlorine. You can see I'm just right clicking that. I have this full. I can dump it in there. And that storage is immensely useful. And you can see I have 11 types of fluids in there, but I'm only using about 1/10 right now of the bytes of a 4K one. So very worthwhile. So one thing that has really helped out with making Certane is I have just been electrolyzing some water here in the background. It's not a perfect system. This is very slow. You can see right now I have it disabled because I don't need too much, but it's helped me pull at least I think 100 buckets of hydrogen. And this is helping my progression into AE2 immensely. I did create a waystone over here, Chem 1, and I've set up an interim Certane processor here. It is not final because I do want this to be part of my AE2 system in time. So some of the transitions here are pre-AE2. First up, this bucket here is meant for hydrochloric acid. Since I don't have any on demand, I have a chemical reactor here that I can feed. In the future, I do plan to just have an input here for hydrochloric acid. This goes into my chemical reactor with Certus dust and goes into one of these 4 pieces here. So Certus dust, when it chemically reacts with hydrochloric acid, has 2 byproducts, both the hydrogen gas and the trichlorocertane, which is why I'm using another one of these quadruple pipes. These have those 4 channels that I described earlier, which if you just open it up, you can see how that works. And again, I'm using those fluid cell filters here to tell which fluid can go up and which fluid can go this way. And I have it on both of these just to make sure that they're not causing an issue. I will give you guys a heads up. Make sure you're finding your lapis or your sodalite. I haven't found sodalite or looked that hard, but I did have lapis. And a combination of lapis and zinc will get you these guys. So this one here makes your trichlorocertane here, and that has 2 outputs as well. But luckily, it's 1 item and 1 liquid, so you can just use your setting here. So I have a locked drawer up here that just holds Certus, and I'm going to use that elsewhere just to macerate it down. I could put a maceration link in here, but I already expanded it pretty heavily, so I didn't want to. All right, and in this chemical reaction with the dichlorocertane, this does have 2 outputs of liquid. So again, I have one of these quad pipes right here. It's chlorocertane and then the Certus trichloros, whatever, chloride, which I have that going up here to this section. Once again, whitelisted here into our electrolyzer. Let me put some more chlorine gas in here. So this electrolyzer in particular is something that I was really excited to be able to do. It is electrolyzing the Certus dust out of that material here. Okay, you see it processing there. It's pulling the chlorine gas and it's pulling the Certus dust. So the chlorine gas goes along the top and into our hydrochloric acid maker here. And this actually is what I'm loving. It has a remote upgrade here, which links it to a drawer controller. And so it's linked to this drawer controller here, which is the only, and that's the only one on its network. So when I empty it via a hopper, it empties back into this first chemical reactor for like some quasi wireless dealio here. Actually, I think it's just straight up wireless dealio. So that answers that. That's why I have another quad pipe here. Oh, that scares the bejesus out of me. And then here I'm actually working on the chlorocertane. All right, and chlorocertane is a little bit more on the messy chemistry side because it does certane and diochlorocertane. So it actually leapfrogs back to the method just before it. And so I split this, and instead of putting the filters on the machines, I actually put it on the pipe this time. And you can access the pipe filters or covers using a screwdriver. So again, I just split the type, and this way I have certane being processed here, 46 millibuckets, how fanciful. And then I'm always recycling that dichlorocertane, so I'm not wasting space with it. So yeah, that's what I did for this. Hopefully it's helpful. This is not my final condition, so but it is much easier than doing this by hand. So thank you so much for joining me this episode. I think that's going to wrap it up. I tried a few things that were new this episode, a little bit more voiceover to kind of stop from having to talk through the grind. That way you guys can see what I'm doing, but also like see the results versus deal with the suffering. Of course, it's getting dark right as I'm doing my outro. Gotta go to sleep. The irony with the sleep part that actually kind of addresses the other portion of what I want to do with these videos is I do still want to keep doing them. I still want to keep doing them more consistently in time than what I've been doing. So I might just have a little bit slightly shorter. I think this one's going to be 5 minutes or so shorter than normal. And maybe we'll do some 20-minute ones or 15-minute ones just so you can see what is happening. But maybe I don't get too in the weeds as much on editing some of my very long spiels. I do have VODs up for my Wednesday Gravitas chores on YouTube, and I'm always happy to talk in the Discords for ATM Gravitas too, if you're around over there. So yeah, I'm so excited to get into AE2. It's ridiculous. We're getting closer to auto crafting. Now I need a new building though. So drop me a comment, follow, like, all those fun things. And if you have any suggestions, I am curious. Let me know. Bye.